Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is your instructor. My name is Greg Lutz, and today's class is all about Power BI. I have to tell you, I've been very impressed with a lot of the new features that Microsoft has been coming out with Office, and it really started with Office 2007. Once I saw 2007, very, very impressed. I saw the improvements with 2010. And honestly, I didn't expect much for 2013. I expected Microsoft to kind of sit back for a little bit and let the dust settle, but they didn't. They completely changed 2013, and they introduced a whole lot of different tools that we've been missing. Some of these tools have only been available to IT, and most of these tools have only been available to people that understand SQL and VBA and ASP and APIs and all kinds of different new technologies and old technologies that have been around for some time. This is the first time that I've seen some unbelievable tools being turned over to the users. You see, one of the problems that we all face, and it's not just you or your company, but we all face the exact same problems with data. You have data all over the place. You have data in the company database, and then your department maintains either their own database or their own spreadsheet or their own Word document that has all this information in it. And accounting has theirs, HR has theirs, sales has theirs. And if you could just take all the databases and merge them together, you'd have one clear picture of the health of the company, where the company is headed, as well as all the other information that you could mine from that. But the problem is that it all sits in different places. And if you know how to pull all that information together, then I'm not showing you anything you don't already know how to do. But if you don't know how to pull all that information together, this version of Excel will show you how to do it. The other issue that we run into as well is the amount of data that we are presented with on the Internet. The Internet is just an incredible, incredible tool if it's used correctly and properly and you know where to look. And I guess the last one, knowing where to look, is the hardest part. You type certain things into Google, and you don't get what you're looking for. And that's not Google's fault. That's not anybody's fault, really. It's just the fact that the data is just all over the place. There's just so much of it. And then to get it in a usable format, that's hard. That's tough. And that's what this is going to do for you. So first, let me talk about the tools that I'm going to be using. Let me talk about the setup of those tools and how to set them up. And then we'll take a look at the individual tools. The tools that I'm talking about are the Power BI tools. And some of these tools come with Excel, and some of them you have to download. So let's talk about that. I'm going to open up Excel 2013, and I'll mention this right in the beginning. These tools are only available and only work with 2013. So if you do not have 2013, or in, what do we got, 8 days? In 8 days, if you're using your Excel 2016, this will work with 2016, this will work with 2013, but it will not work with previous versions. You do not have these features. So let me open Excel and let me talk about the features. In 2013, like most products, you have kind of a splash screen now that you kind of get into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here so that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going to share my whole screen. Now that I have Excel just up in front of me here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of the different features that you have. And some of these different features are extremely helpful. They really and truly are. So I'm just going to go into a blank workbook. Awesome. And I already have the tools installed, of course, but let me point them out to you. The first tool first couple of tools that you'll notice is your Powerpivot. This comes with 2013 Excel, but the problem is that it's not installed. So what you have to do with most of these tools is you got to go to File, you've got to go to Options. It's part of the add-ins, and you'll see the power tools there. Here I've got Powerpivot, and I had to enable this COM add-in. I also had to install Power View, and I had to install Power Query. Now, Power View and Power Query show up as separate tabs. Power Map and Power View do not. Those two show up in Insert. So there's a little inconsistency with how the tools are displayed. But no matter. The idea is that Powerpivot is going to allow you to create some really powerful power pivots or pivot tables. What this allows you to do is this allows you to create relationships between different types of data that is not normally associated with each other. Power Query will let you do the same type of thing, kind of, but it'll get you the data. So it's not going to create relationships, but it is going to grab the data from a lot of different places. It'll grab it from the web, and I'll demo this one. I'll show you this one. You can also get it from a file, and lots of different types. You can get it from a database, and again, lots of different types, and all your majors are there. You could also get it from the Azure Marketplace, and in other sources, you might see a few surprises. Active Directory, Dynamics, CRM, Facebook, Salesforce. So you've got lots of different places that you can grab it from. Not to mention, there's also a search data catalog. This data search catalog, what it allows you to do is it allows you to search the internet for different sources of data. But if you subscribe to the Power BI site, so the Power BI service, if you subscribe to that service, you'll then be able to take different data models that you've made yourself and upload them to the website for other people to download and use. To give you an idea of how all this stuff works, though, Insert, yes. If I go to Insert, inside Insert is where I can add different maps. I can add different maps. I can also add different views. Power View is much like a dashboard. Map is map. It's going to show you a map and do some cool things, don't get me wrong, but it's a map. Power View allows you to take maps and charts and graphs and trend lines and all that stuff and put it into a dashboard or a report. It's gorgeous. Let's start with one of these, though. Let's start with Power Query. Now I've got lots of different data, and I got it sitting in a lot of different places. So the first place that I got to go to grab the data is a database. Easy enough. I head to Power Query, I choose from database, and the database that I'm going to use is an Access database. This database, I have it sitting on my desktop, and it's called Olympic Medals. So this is the one that I'm going to use, and this is the one that I'm going to pull all the information from. All right. So I'm going to grab Olympic medals. So I'm going to click OK. And immediately what it does is it connects to the database, and it shows me all the different tables that sit in the database. So now what I can do is I can select multiple items and grab everything from this database. I can edit the information. I can also load it. And if I click on Load, then it loads all of those tables into my spreadsheet. Slowly but surely, I promise. Now what I can do is I can head to Insert, and I can insert a pivot table. I can select the table, select the range, the table, all this stuff, external data if I need to, right? If I click OK, it'll bug me that the source is not valid because I haven't really selected anything anyways. On the right-hand side are the different queries that I've done. So here I have different workbook queries, and this is a query that shows me all the disciplines in the Olympic medals. I can edit this data. I can also send it to the data catalog. I can also click on Load To, and I can load it to a table. And I can do that in a brand new worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load the disciplines. Throws it in Sheet 2. I'll give it a proper name. I'll do the same thing with events. I click on Events, and I can load it too. Now, obviously, this is going to be a little bit tedious. If you have to do this with 50, 60, I say 100 different tables. So the other way of loading in the data, I'll just say don't save, and I'll create another sheet here. The other way of loading the data is to do it in the Data tab. Power Query is great for a lot of different types of tables that you want to massage, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. But I just want to make this quick and fast, so I'm going to go to Data, I'll grab it from Access, and I'll do it this way. So I'll grab it from my desktop. Here it's going to connect to the data source. I'll click OK. I'll enable multiple selections. Selecting every table, and I'll click OK. To make things easy, I'm just going to drop this right inside a pivot table. That way it'll be nice and quick. Now, all of those different tables and all the different fields show up on the left-hand side, and I can now take all the information and put it all together. So what I can do is I can take the NOC country, right, NOC country region, and I can drag the NOC country region into the columns. And it starts to build a pivot table. Then from the disciplines table, I can grab the disciplines and take the discipline and drag it into the rows. Now, I don't want to see all the disciplines, so I'm just going to filter the disciplines really quick, because the only ones that I really want to see is archery, let's say, what's right here, diving, and I'll do fencing, figure skating, and speed skating. This way it's a little bit more manageable. Then what I'm going to do is from the medals table, I'm just going to drag the values from the medals table. I'm going to drag the medals into the values. And because it's text, bronze, silver, gold, it's going to count them. So you can see how many Austria won for archery, or how much Egypt won for diving, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, to make this a little bit more easier, I'm going to take medals, and I'm going to drag medals, and I'm going to drag it and drop it into the filter area. This way, we can filter to see all the bronze, all the gold, all the silver medals. Now, it's still showing me quite a bit, so I'm just going to pare this down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter my columns. I'm going to head to field settings here. I'm going to filter these out, so I'm going to do a value filter. So I'll click the pull-down arrow for my column label. I'll just do a value filter, and I'll choose greater than. So I'm looking for all the medals that are greater than 90, and that's a grand total of 90. So it's not 90 for the discipline. That's a grand total of 90. That should make it a lot easier for us to take a look at now. So now what we have is a count of all the metals. There's a handful of countries that we now have, and with very little effort, we have now created a beautiful pivot table from a bunch of different tables. Now, say we've got more information, and that more information sits in a spreadsheet. So I'll insert a new sheet. I'll rename this. I'll call it Sports. And then I've got a spreadsheet that's called Olympic Sports. And I'll just do a copy and paste. Let me do it from here just in case. I'll go to File, I'll go to Open, I'll go to my computer, and I'll head to my desktop. There should be a file called Olympic Sports. Awesome. I'll open it up. Really quick way, instead of selecting this whole thing here, a very quick way of selecting it is to go to Find and Select. I'll go to Special, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the current region. That'll select everything here, and I'll copy it. I'll copy it, I'll switch books, and I'll paste it into here. Now, in order to work with the information, what you need to be doing is you need to be working with tables. This is not a table. In order to make this a table, you've got to go to Home, and you've got to format this as a table. 90% of the time that you work with data in Excel, it needs to be in a table. If you are not working with tables, you are missing 50% of Excel. Now I'm going to choose a table here. It doesn't matter which one. It's now just eye candy at this point. You just have to make it a table. My table does have headings or headers, and when I click OK, that's a proper table. I also need to give the table a name, so I'm going to call it Sports. Whoops, spelled properly. There we are. Now that it's formatted properly, now that it has a proper name, I'll save the workbook just for good measure, and then I'll come back to this. So I'll just hit Save just so I don't lose anything. And I'm going to save this whole workbook. I'll save it to my desktop. I'm just going to call it Power BI. Now I'll do a new sheet. I have another file. If I go to File, I'll go to Open here. And this file is a CSV file. A lot of times you get CSV files kind of dumped in from SAP, a lot of your older databases. Your IT people will give you a CSV file, and generally it's a pretty ugly looking file. Now when you open it in Excel, it looks a lot better in Excel, and once again, this needs to be a table. So first, I'll select the data. And then what I'm going to do once I select the data, I'll use current region. I'll then copy it and go back to my Power BI example. Here I've got a spreadsheet. I'll call this one Hosts, and I'll paste this into the spreadsheet. I'll also make this a solid table. That table is also going to have a name as well. And to keep things simple, I'll call the table the same as the sheet, and I'll call it Hosts, just like we did with Sports. Now what I can do is I can use this data. And I can use this data any way that I want. Now there is a couple things that I do want to change. For instance, addition, that's not a number. So what I need to do is I need to format addition as number, so I'll just click on the whole column, and I'll format it as a number. It comes with decimal places, so that means I'll have to decrease the decimal place so that the addition looks properly. You'll get this later on. So all the data needs to be properly formatted. All the data needs to look proper. I've got host looking right. Sports looks good too. and I'll go back to my pivot table. Now, back at my pivot table, if I want to use any of these fields, like if I want to, say, add sports, any of the fields from sports, any of the fields from hosts, you'll notice that those tables are not listed here. Not here. If I go to all, then I see all the tables. There's sports, there's hosts. What we're saying is, what we've done is we've taken several different files. We've taken those files and we've merged them all together in a pivot table. This way, when you have data that sits all over the place, it doesn't have to be in the same spot. All we have to do is merge it all together, create a data model, create relationships between the data, and this is what you get. Now what I want to do is I want to use Powerpivot for a little bit. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to add data to Powerpivot. So first, let me show you Powerpivot. Up top, I'll click on Powerpivot. I'll click on Manage, and then you get into Powerpivot. This is not Powerpivot. There isn't much here for you anyways. But if I click on Manage, you can see all the different data that sits in Powerpivot. It looks very similar to Excel. You have the sheets down below, disciplines, events, medals, summer teams, winter teams, and you'll notice that sports is here too. But you'll notice that hosts is missing. I'll get out of here. I'll go back to Excel. Any tables that are missing out of the model, you can easily add them to the data model by heading to Powerpivot and clicking on Add to Data Model. Once you add it to the data model, it shows up. So now I can see that hosts has been added to the data model. If I click on View, if I go up to my View section and I click on my diagram view shows me the different relationships between the different tables. If there's no relationship between the table, then there's no way for you to take those tables to 3 different tables or whatever, and there's no way for you to relate that table to another table or use that data in another table. So I'm just going to reorganize these here a little bit just so I can see them. I think I still got hosts over here, so let me stretch this out so you can see that. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a relationship between medals and events. So I'm going to drag the discipline event from the events table, and I'm going to drag it and drop it right on top of discipline event in the medals table. So the medals table here is on the left-hand side, and we have this thing called discipline event. The same thing is located in events. So I'm going to click on discipline event. I'm going to drag and drop it right on top of discipline events and create a relationship between the 2 tables. By creating this relationship, I can now take medals, I can now take events, and have the 2 of them talk. Now I'd like to connect hosts. Well, this one was easy. See, if you take a look at that one, you can already see the 2 different fields, right? And even though they're different fields, they have the exact same name. And if you're familiar with the data, because it's your database, you would know that these 2 sets of data have the same information. But the problem with hosts is that I don't have anything in hosts that exists in another table. So there's no way for me to connect hosts the way that it's set up right now. But if we could somehow create some sort of a unique field between the medals table and the host table, and then relate them all, that'd make things a lot easier. And that's what we're going to do. There was a reason that I took addition in hosts, there's a reason that I took addition and I made sure that it was a number. When you create relationships, you have to make sure that it's the same amount of data, it's apples and apples. So I'm going to switch views. I'll go to the data view. And in the data view, I'm going to head to hosts. I'm going to create a brand new column. I'm going to add a brand new column by clicking on Add New Column or Add Column. And I'm going to use a formula in the formula bar called concatenate. So in the formula bar up top, I'm going to click into it. I'll throw in equals, right? Just like every formula. Sorry, there we go. Equals, and I'll type in concatenate. Concatenate joins two strings together, and the two strings that I want is going to be an opening bracket, addition, comma, and I'll take season and marry the two together. That way, what this does is it creates a brand new field that has the addition and the season. I'll need to give it a better name than calculated column. So I'm going to rename this column, and I'll call it addition ID. Brand new field. I'm now going to use, that was a DAX formula that I used to create this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another DAX formula in the metals table to create basically the exact same field. But when you look at metals, there's a problem with the addition. You see, the addition, it doesn't show the year. I mean, it does, but it shows the year, and it also shows the date and the time. I don't need all that. So what I'm going to do is create a brand new field. Like it says, to add a column. Here I'll click to add a column. And the formula that I'm going to use here is going to be equals year Sorry, let me try that again. Equals year, and then opening bracket, and then addition. Of course, I'll give that a better column name than calculated column 1. I'll simply call it year. So now I've got one that's called year, now I've got one called season, and now I can make that addition ID the exact same way that it appears in hosts. So I'll add another column. I'll do equals. I'll do concatenate again. And I'll throw in my first bit of text. So that's going to be year. The next bit of text is going to be addition. Season, my fault. I'll close that, hit my enter key, and what this should do for me is create a brand new field that looks identical to addition ID. I'll right click, I'll rename the field, and I'll call this addition ID. Now I've got two fields that are basically the same. Now I can go to my diagram view and create a relationship between hosts and metals. And I can do that by using the addition ID. So to create the relationship, easy enough. I'll drag the addition ID that now sits in metals. and I'll drag it and drop it right on top of Edition ID in hosts. So what I've done is I've right-clicked, hidden this from the client tools. You may want to do the same thing, like, I don't know, for instance, the event ID, that's not going to mean anything to anybody. So you can right-click right on top of it and actually hide that field from the client tools. This way, people aren't dragging in different fields that really don't mean anything and wouldn't be used in a query anyways. The other thing that I want to do in here is create what's called a hierarchy. See, when you work with data, especially if you work with a lot, you understand where the hierarchy is. You understand that, for instance, if we're talking about a country, there's a hierarchy. You got country, you got province, you got city, and that's a hierarchy. If people aren't familiar with the data, they may not understand the hierarchy right away. They may look at it and try and guess the hierarchy. So, in that case, what you can do is create hierarchies for them. So for instance, in events, I'm going to right-click on events and create a hierarchy. The hierarchy is going to be called SDE. And the reason that I called it SDE is because I'm going to take sport, discipline, sport didn't go in, so let me grab sport. I'll drop sport in there. I'll also move sport up at the top because it goes sport, the discipline, and then the event. So instead of dragging in 7 different fields, they're only going to have to drag in a couple of fields to get the exact same pivot table that I just made. I'll do the same thing in the host. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hierarchy inside of hosts, and I'm just going to right-click, create hierarchy. I'll give the hierarchy a name. I'll call it locations. And with locations, I'll choose season, then city, then the knock, and then the edition ID that shows us the year and the season. So I've got 3 fields here. I've got 4 fields here. That's 7 different fields that somebody would have to drag in, and now all they're going to have to do is drag in 2 different fields. So I'm going to go back to my pivot table. I'll close this. I'll head back to my pivot table that sits on sheet 1, and I'll blow the whole thing apart. That's going back, that's going back, that's going back. Metal stays there, the count of metals stay there, but when I fold out events, there's SDE. I take SDE and I drop it into the rows. I fold out hosts, take locations, and I drop locations into the columns. Now I can filter out whatever sports I want. So I can say archery. And then, oops, I think I blew by it. Skating. And let's see what else. You get the idea. Fencing, sure. I'll click OK. And now I can see the different disciplines and the events. There's figure skating, short track, speed skating, right? And the different events that fall underneath those. And this is all from a ton of different sources. Any questions whatsoever? All right, then. Let's keep going. I'll insert a sheet here. I'll call this one map. Actually, I'll call this one. I'll call this Powerview. All right. With Powerview, it also has a mapping feature. So if I go to Insert, I'll head to a section called Reports here, and the only button in there is Powerview. Powerview, very much like Powerpivot, it's a completely different program in a sense. You'll notice that the Powerview toolbar has completely changed. It also inserts a brand new sheet called Powerview 1 because I already have Powerview sitting there. But now what I can do is I can expand, say, the host table, right? I can take the host table, and from the host table, I can grab city, and I can drop city right onto the page. I can then take sport for metals. I can grab sport, and I can drop it right on top of that same table, and now I see the city, and I see the sport. In the fields on the right-hand side, for in my Powerview fields here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter these a little bit. So for the sport, I'll click the pull-down arrow, and I'll get it to count, not blank. So now it counts all the different sports except for the sports where there was no count. Then what I can do is I can completely switch the way that this looks. Now what I can do is I can go to my Design tab here and click on Map. I'll click on Map. I'll need to enable the content to enable the geocoding, but now it takes all the different cities and maps out all the different cities. I can then take season, drag season into the color, and color code the two. I'll expand this so you can see it a little bit better. And it's interactive. If I click on summer, it shows me all the summer. If I click on winter, it shows me all the winter. Right. Not bad. Not bad at all. I'll click back onto the map and bring everything back here. Any questions whatsoever? And there's so much more that I can do with this. Believe me, I'm not even getting close to all the different things that you can do. I can change this around so it's a different type of chart. Column charts, bar charts, pie charts, scatter charts, bar charts, right? So I could do something like a clustered bar. And then it changes it. Just incredible things that you can do with this. Incredible stuff. I'll switch it back to a map. Any questions whatsoever? See, what have I got here? I got year. Yeah, there's year. I can drop year into the tiles. And then 1990, I can see where that was, Paris, right? 1994, I can see where that was, St. Louis. So there's just all kinds of really neat stuff that you can do. I can do a tile type. excuse me, a tile type, just have it displayed at the bottom so I see all the different tiles. Just incredible stuff. Shows you the summer, shows you the Winter Olympics. Not exactly specific versions. It comes with Excel 2013, unless you're using something like the online version. So if you're using the free online version, then no, this doesn't come with it. But if you have Excel 2013, this comes with Excel 2013, kind of. You have to install Power Query, and you also have to install Power View. Power Map already comes with this, and so does Powerpivot. But all of these are add-ins that you have to turn on yourself. You might have to turn to your IT people and get them to give you a hand with installing these things. But these do come with Excel 2013 and Excel 2016. All right, I only got a few more minutes, so I want to show you one more thing. This is Power Map. Unfortunately, there's just no way for me to go through all the different things that Power Map does. The Power View gives you an idea of some of the things that Power Map can do, but this is what I really wanted to show you. This is a pretty big file. So hopefully this thing can kind of handle it here. Or not. All right, sorry, let me try that again. I'm just going to enable editing on this, slowly but surely. Oh, it's opened both of them now. Good. Awesome. Perfect. I downloaded this data from Data King. There's lots of different websites that you can go to that has a ton of data. Now, if you're wondering how do you figure all this stuff out, you can head to Power Query, click on Data Catalog Search, and if I was to type in, say, food safety, I'll click on Search. It goes out across the internet, and there's all kinds of just tons and tons of data that I can download that all deals with food safety. If I hover over top of the different locations here, it shows me what the information looks like. So I can download all kinds of stuff. I just have to get more specific about exactly where I'm downloading it from. And this was from the Seattle area that I got it from. Anyways, I'm going to head to Insert, and I'm going to map the whole thing. Now, what I've done is I've already made a map. So the map should show up in a minute. It's just loading the data model right now. And it's still loading the data model. I'm just going to let it spin around for a couple of more seconds. Okay. Now it looks like it's finally behaving. Perfect. Perfect. All right. This is all the different restaurants in the Seattle area. And what I've done is I have created and mapped out all this information and put it on a map. So I have the address and the city and the description and latitude and longitude and all this information. But the beauty is that I have made this into a tour. You see, I can give you charts and graphs and all kinds of neat stuff. But if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what you're looking at. If you don't know where to look or how to filter or any of that stuff, then the data might as well be useless to you. Unless I walk you through it, you have no idea where to look or what you're looking at. So then what you do is you build one of these. You go to Insert, you choose Power Map, and you mark all this information out. Then what you do is you create all these different scenes. So what I did is I added a scene and added different information. I inserted text boxes and little charts and graphs and legends and all kinds of stuff so that I can export this whole thing as a movie, upload it, and when they watch the movie, this is what they see. I can narrate this as well if I want to, but I show them all the different areas, the different regions that were inspected in the Seattle area. I show them all the different violation points, like Washington State football, Microsoft, right, 16 violations. All the good spots, all the bad spots. Total number of violations in downtown Seattle compared to Mercer Island. And that's the tour. So in Excel, you can make these absolutely incredible tours, all with maps. It does work with postal codes, but it only works with the first part of the postal code. But it is very simple and very easy to get a Excel file that has all of the cities and the latitude and longitude of all Canadian cities, and then be able to merge that with your data. Well, very quickly, that was all your different Power BI tools. These Power BI tools are unbelievable for analyzing data. Not only just analyzing the data, but also presenting it in a very different way than what a lot of people have seen. Now, these tools, in one way or another, in one program or another, have always been available. But unless you know how to program, unless you know how to work with different types of data and languages and databases, generally, this was something that only somebody that was used to working with those different types of technology, this was something that was only available to them. Not everybody wants to be a DBA, a database administrator, and not everybody wants to be a programmer. So that in itself presents its own little challenge. Any questions about anything that you've seen in the last hour? And by the way, this takes me 4 days for me to go through everything that you just saw. There's quite a bit to it. I'm just going to close out a power map here. I'll come back to my my original data. And as you can see, I just would never hand this data to anybody. It's not in a presentable format. But if I was to map it out, then you get it. Then it makes a lot more sense. It really does. Any other questions whatsoever? All right. I barely scratched the surface with this new tool, Power BI. There's a whole website that's behind it so that you can do all these complicated things, upload them to a website for people to enjoy or for people to use and manipulate. Again, I'm still not showing you not even a tenth of what I show you in class. So just incredible tools. I've been very, very impressed with the Microsoft suite. I knew Microsoft had to do something. There's a lot of competition butting at their heels right now, and if you take a look at this, this may want to be something that that you take a look at. You may want to look at it in depth. What's the difference between this and Access? Access doesn't do any of that. None. Zero. Zilch. Where's the course being offered? If you go to our Train Canada website, you can take a look there. We have all the posted public schedules. Obviously, you can also talk to one of our CTC representatives. Call in. There's a 1-800 number, and they can definitely put something together for you if you have a few people in your organization that want to take this. Obviously, we can also go out to you as well. So if you have enough people, we can definitely head out to you guys and do the whole class right there. As I said, to go through all of the different tools, it'd be about 4 days. PowerView is the one that actually takes 2 days to go through, and that's because it kind of merges everything together. So there's quite a bit to that. All right. As long as there's no questions, I want to thank you guys so much for coming out to today's webinar. Every once in a while, we have webinars. Check our website. You are more than welcome to join us. Also, please take a look at our website and take a look at a lot of the different courses that we offer. And remember, if you don't see a course that is listed on our site, please give us a shout at the 1-800 number and ask. A lot of times, we just don't post it. There's just so much that we do that we throw the major stuff up there. But if you're looking for something a little bit more personalized, or you're looking for something that's just completely out of the box, please don't hesitate. Give us a shout. We'll talk. Thank you so much for today's presentation, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.